What is the meaning of life? That is an age-old question which so many people ask, and they come up with so many answers. To live it, to be happier, whatever, but that is a can't get out of your own way type of answer, because it's still the same life. You can think of it in a non-religious way. You might say life exists to make more life, but when you look at it, you realize that is only taking care of yourself. That's only taking care of the life prolonging the human existence on this planet. But what do we do for this planet? Well, we affect it in negative and positive ways, but that's still life in general affecting the planet. But what is the planet? The planet is a rock floating in the universe, and all this different life is existing on it. There are plant, animal, bacteria, but it's all just different kinds of life. There are humans and elephants and pine trees, earthworms, platyhelminthes, but are all life. They are all life, just different forms of life. So, if you ask the question, what's the meaning of life? Why is there life on this rock? And I guess that is why they lean toward a religious aspect, because you say that it has something to do with this life force, this soul, this energy that can only exist within a life force. We don't even know that for a fact. Does this energy exist without life? I guess it's the question: if a tree falls in the forest, does anyone hear it? If energy exists without a life force to comprehend it, then would it exist at all? I think, therefore I am, as Rene Descartes says. So how do we figure this out, or why does it even matter? Is it just something to think about because we enjoy thinking about things? We can solve most problems. People have found a way to turn lead into gold with the particle accelerator. They can pretty much do anything, and if humans can pretty much do anything, then they can't figure out what life is for. That is why it's a question in the first place, because it's something to think about, to try to figure out. Because we can do anything, we can figure this out. It doesn't matter if we figure it out or not. It's not going to change anything. But it's just fun to think about, I guess. So, trees exist to hold soil together, to create oxygen for other life forces to breathe. But that is life helping life. Animals and plants exist to feed other animals and plants, but why do they even exist in the first place? It's life helping life, but does life help anything else? Does life help anything else? Well, when we die, we turn into dirt. Then we make more dirt, and after a while, that dirt turns into rock. But what is that for? Who needs a rock unless something can live on it? Well, what is a rock? It is actually something physical. It's something created. It's something non-living but brought into existence. I can't say brought into existence by living things. I know I said people decompose and become rock, but other things cause rocks as well, like the sun. Did you know that the dirt on this planet, well, some of it, the dirt on this planet comes from the sun? The sun is putting out things, though it's so far away, these particles of matter are spreading out in all directions away from it and landing on objects they hit, like planets and moons. So some of the dirt on this planet came from the sun. Some of the dirt came from other parts of the galaxy. So life does not create stone, but you have to have rock to have life, because you have to have a host. You have to have something for life to form on. The earth has the different chemical makeup to harbor life. It has the molecules, hydrogen and oxygen, to make water. Life needs water. It's made of carbon, silicone. All these different molecules come together to create life. But why? Why is life formed, and how? I want to ask, how is life formed, but that is a question for another day. Why is life formed? Why do bacteria come into existence? It starts somewhere. It's got to start somewhere in some kind of seed of life. It's got to exist to come into being. There's the oxygen, the hydrogen, and these things are conducive to form life, but where does it start? Where is that piece? Did it start in the ocean? Some think so. Does it need fire? Charles Wentworth Littlefield was a scientist who claims to have created life in the lab, but it didn't survive and thrive because it didn't have that vital life force, that soul, to keep it animated. The something and something, a mixture of chemicals, make this force, this life. Like they say, primordial soup. All these elements come together to create life, and like a loaf of bread, lightning strikes, or you put it in the oven and yeast and water and flour come together. Does certain elements come together to create life? And this life changes and mutates into other forms of life, taking on different forms, creating different DNA structures to form different organisms, and scientists go into detail to learn this. But why? It's just for knowledge, so you know and understand it. Some people are more curious than others, so they delve deeper into it, how things work and how life is formed, but they don't understand why, and I think that we can answer this question somehow. It's not necessarily formed because the energy needs a home, because why would Dr. Littlefield's organisms not survive? It's that life force was like a vacuum, and it would suck in the energy needed to sustain it. And it would have sucked in that soul that it needed to sustain it, but it didn't. I'm so close to figuring it out just by thinking about it, but there is some kind of wall I need to break through, just a thin piece of paper. I can punch right through it and I will see and understand. There are so many different forms of life, but one does not make another. One makes the same. Bacteria can split and make another bacteria, but it can't split and make an elephant. Only an elephant can make an elephant. But they all have the urge to do so, because if they didn't, they wouldn't exist for long. So it always has this urge to make more. And they each make more, but one does not make another. How does one exist? I tend to look at the life that moves around, not the trees and the grass, which is life too. I focus on the birds and the insects. I focus less on the grass, but maybe the answer is the grass. The grass makes seeds to make more grass, and weeds make seeds to grow more weeds. And they fight for existence. They fight for space and nutrients. They take the form they take from the soil, but are these nutrients living things? These nutrients that the grass takes are elements. The roots absorb water, the roots absorb vitamins from the soil, minerals from the soil, nitrogen. They also need the sun to grow. So that light, those photons which absorb into the pores and the leaves that help it to grow, most all plants need the sun. There are some plants that live in darkness. There are some fish that live on the bottom of the ocean where they've never seen light, but do they absorb what they need from the water? The light from the sun only goes so far, but are these nutrients that get down to them whatever nutrients the sun provides? It makes the conditions right for life to exist. If the sun did not exist, it would be so cold that life wouldn't exist. So the sun is a key to discovering how life is made. And what is heat anyway? So these grass leaves, blades of grass, they absorb sun. They absorb nutrients from the soil. They absorb water, and they grow. So grass doesn't need life, or does it? Are there microorganisms that live in the soil that, whether die and decompose and are absorbed by the plants, or are they living and the grass absorbs them for nutrients? Then there are other animals that eat the grass, and we eat them. We eat some types of grass too. So we need these elements that are provided by plants, beets and carrots. Some humans in Arctic region don't eat any plant matter because it doesn't grow in that climate. So they get all their nutrients from meat. Is that true? I'll do some research. Can humans live off of meat alone? Are there nutrients in the vegetables that they need to survive, or can they adapt to getting all the nutrients from meat alone? That would be interesting. I need to figure this out, because that would be a clue. We could look at it like, if they can survive on just meat, then they don't need the nutrients and minerals in the plants. But the animal they get the meat from eats the vegetables, and somehow some of these nutrients get into the meat, and the people get the nutrients that way. That wouldn't prove anything, because they would still get it in a secondary way. So I feel like the grass holds the answer to the meaning of life. But that's not really even the meaning of life. That just tells how life is created. Maybe one day I'll figure it out. Maybe it'll just come to me, but I guess for now I need to quit and stop talking about it, talk about something else for a while, but I'll keep that in the back of my mind and figure out how to break through that piece of paper. What is life for? What does the planet need life for? Or what does something from outer space need life for? What are we made of? A human is around 70% water. Do we hold water? Do we need to be vessels to hold water or something else? Is there some kind of substance that we carry? Well, the oceans hold water. There is frozen water in the polar ice caps. There are streams and rivers and underground lakes and tributaries that hold water. So is water lost? What takes water? If it were water, if somehow, because all life has water in it and all life uses water, and so is there a way for water? Does some UFO come down and suck the water out of us? Death takes water from us. When we die, we lose it. Everything is dried up, evaporated out of us, and we turn into dust. But where does that water go? It doesn't leave. It stays in the atmosphere to be recycled. So death does not take it. Death just causes it to be recycled. What else is there that life holds or manufactures that is necessary for the earth to exist? And I think of it in terms of Earth instead of another galaxy or something, because this Earth produced the life that we have, and it made everything possible for life to exist. And so if it made life, it needs it for something. And why does the Earth need life? Or is it the Earth that needs it, or something else that made the Earth to make life, to hold or create something that it needs? Like how our bodies adapt to certain things. The universe may adapt to help it survive by creating life. What is so valuable about us? What is so valuable about grass and trees and elephants and hippos and fish in the ocean? It seems as if there is life in all different areas. Like there's life in the dirt, there's life in the oceans, there's life in the terrestrial terrain, whatever. The birds fly, and there is really no life in the air, is there? Birds depend on the land for their survival, so everything depends on the earth for their survival. But does the earth depend on life for its survival? What does life hold that the earth needs? I guess there's a magic something that animates us. This energy. Maybe that is what it needs. Would the earth exist without the energy that life produces? I believe it would, because there are other planets out there that don't have life on them, and they still exist. I guess we don't really know that for sure, that they don't have life on them. Maybe they all have life on them, and the life is the little power source, like nuclear energy. You don't need a lot of it to run something for a really long time. So all the life on the planet, we create the small amount of energy. It is in each of us, and when we die, it's released, and that is why we die, to release this energy, and the earth uses it. Then someone else is born and they have their own energy. Maybe the mother or the seed parent or whatever transfers their life force, kind of like how one candle can light many without losing any of its flame. Perhaps that energy inside of life can split without losing any of its energy. But once the vessel expires, that energy is released and the earth is waiting for that vessel to expire or ripen so it can get that energy to keep going and keep producing the things it needs to produce life, to produce energy that powers the planet. Is that it? Is it just a cycle? The meaning of life is to be a cog in the machine? I believe that is it. It's almost bittersweet to discover the meaning of life and find we're only a cog in the wheel of something bigger than us. But it does make me proud that I'm a vessel holding that energy. I have a purpose, albeit the same purpose as every other life form in the existence. Every blade of grass holds a bit of energy. Every tree, every bird, every butterfly holds a bit of energy. And when it dies, the energy is released, and that energy goes to power the planet to create more life. Just as we keep going, we raise animals and cultivate land to grow food to keep us going. We work to make money to buy food to keep us going. We need food and water just as the planet needs energy. So the meaning of life is to be a vessel that holds energy to create more life. Not just to create more life, it's not just that I live to procreate. No, I live so that the earth and every life force in it can live. So what happens to this energy? Is it used? Does the earth utilize it and life makes more? Or does the earth use it while it's not in a life? We see it as the life force or energy leaves the body when it dies, but where it goes, nobody knows. So could somehow it be absorbed into the earth? But didn't earth exist before life? I mean, it did. The earth existed before life. So that a fact, because if it is, it may negate my claim. So humans need air to breathe, and they can't exist without it. They can't have come into this life and grew oxygen-producing plants so they could survive. But was the planet? No, it turned since it existed, but could the planet have been put here to produce life? Okay, let's look at it this way. We're thinking about moving to Mars, and we're putting things there in advance so it'll be ready for us when we get there so we can survive. So maybe there is some supreme being or some other form of some other kind of existence that we don't know about. I mean, we don't know everything. Someone or something could have put the planet here to produce life, to produce energy. I know that sounds like something out of a science fiction tale, but if I think about it just as we have thought about it up to this point, we can figure it out. What can we think? How can we call the answers to us? Why the earth was put here? Okay, so state a fact. It's not a fact, but we will pretend it is for reasoning. Say the earth was put here to grow life so energy can be harvested, so something, whatever, put earth here needs to harvest that energy. Who needs that energy? What is capable of creating a planet? How is a planet formed? They say the Big Bang was a condensing of energy. The theory is that it was a tight ball of force that exploded, and all this was formed because of it. A bank of fog started swirling and picking up speed until it formed matter. A swirling bank of fog that created matter. What creates a swirling bank of fog? So a path is made. I'm going to follow that path up. Do some detective work and go from how it was made to who made it. Go up that finger that's swirling that fog and see who that finger belongs to. Well, I mean, it seems like it's all energy, so can energy make energy? Well, money can't make more money, but you can use money to make more money, but money sitting there won't multiply into more money. There has got to be somebody behind it doing something, being the brains behind it and the energy to make it happen. And we tend to think of it, well, I tend to think of it as people, some person like God that has a finger that swirls the bank of fog and creates this. But if we look at it as it is, we don't know what it is. We've got to figure it out, not just come up with fairy tales. We've got to use some reasoning to do it. I believe this question is going to be a little bit harder to figure out than the previous question. We went to Destin a little weekend vacation. We went through this neighborhood, like a little community on a golf course, and we saw these beautiful houses. They were different styles. The style we liked was a neighborhood called Toscano. They looked like Italy, or what I would imagine the houses in Italy they'll look like. Very beautiful. I asked myself, how do they have so many expensive houses and they're all owned by someone? What do these people do to be able to afford $500,000 house? I'm sure there's plenty of doctors and lawyers that live there, but what else? How can I live there? I see the beaches and they're so beautiful. The water is so clear and blue, emerald. I've been to Cozumel in Greece and I have not seen water as beautiful as I have seen in Destin, Florida. That is where I want to live. I want that beautiful water. I want the sun and sand. The traffic is something I could do without, but imagine living in that beautiful house and driving down to that beautiful beach. How? How do I do that? I start feeling depressed when I think about that, and then my brain says, stop. Don't think like that. For some materialistic bullshit you don't need? You've got a beautiful house where you are, but I want. I want beautiful house. I want beautiful water. How do I afford a beautiful house and beautiful water? Well, they say you have to go to school and become a doctor or a lawyer. I don't think that's a community of doctors. Sure, I think there are plenty of doctors in there and plenty of lawyers live there, but there are other professions in there as well, business owners and other things I don't know. I want to stop the people on the street and ask, what do you do? What do you do to be able to afford this house? And why is it different? What have they done in life to get them to the spot where they are? Were they just born rich or born with some kind of ability to make money? I don't understand it. So I wish I win the lottery and I check my numbers and I see I didn't win, and then I get depressed again. And I'm living in a house right now that people say is beautiful. If friends or family come over that I haven't seen in a long time, they say, oh wow, you have a beautiful home. I have a beautiful home and I have a beautiful car. I drive a Corvette. It's beautiful. I get compliments on it wherever I go. Yeah, it's expensive. Yeah, it's expensive. But we can afford it. My husband can afford it. So he's very intelligent and a hard worker. He has stayed with the same company for 20 years. He worked his way up and I'm happy and proud of him. I wish I could have been there from the beginning, but I'm here now and I look at him with love and admiration. I think he's the greatest. I look at my job that I'm at now and I see there are people who work for the same company as I do that can afford houses like the ones we saw in Destin. And I ask myself, how can I move into a position where I can make that kind of money too? That's a pretty tall totem pole, so it depresses me again. I work hard every day in that company, and when it comes time for raises, bonuses, whatever, I don't get no bonus. There's no such thing as a bonus for my position. Raises? A quarter or a dime? Some kind of crap like that, but I can't understand. I'm down here at the store level. The store's paying my salary or my hourly wage, whatever, and the store has to make money, and the higher-ups come in and complain that the store is not making enough money and we need to work harder. I want to be the one coming in saying work harder. I mean, I don't want to because I want to come in the store and decide whether they're working hard or not. I don't want to look at the numbers and decide from there because I know what it's like to work hard and not get recognized. So I'll be better than that when it's my turn at the top. I want to pause right here for a moment. I need to talk about something I thought about last night, and I was so foolish and I didn't get up and write it down while I was thinking about it, telling myself, oh, that's such a great discovery. I'll remember it until the morning, but alas, no, I have not remembered it, and I'm kicking myself for not getting up. But the short of it is that our thoughts come from the sun. Those ancient people who worshiped the sun because we say it was the largest unexplainable thing that they saw every day. Well, I think there's more to it. You see, the sun burns because it's an area of sky or space or whatever would want to call it that the elements have come together, and some elements when mixed cause explosions, so this giant mixture is very volatile and all kinds of things are happening at once. Well, we know that things are made up of these elements. Take us, for example. Life forms are made up of carbon and water and some other chemicals. Well, on the sun, all these chemicals are mixing together constantly and in so many different combinations, and things are shooting out from the sun in all directions. Dust forms, the sun lands on our planet every day. Actually, our planet is constantly being bombarded by these sun particles constantly without end. So life was formed in the sun, but because of the volatile atmosphere or lack of atmosphere, life couldn't survive. But somewhere safer, like the correct distance from that burning ball, would be ideal. And since the Earth was the correct distance and there from when the sun had a large explosion and formed it previously, so matter is spewing out in all directions from the sun, and so perhaps debris from the sun is landing on the heavenly bodies. And well, and I say perhaps because I'm taking a spin on the solar system into consideration, and perhaps the sun is throwing us a curveball. Returning from that digression, I venture to say, as DNA and RNA is formed by chemical elements, so are thoughts. This may be hard to explain, but bear with me. There are particles flowing through us all the time which we do not see or feel. Everything about us is physical, so why would thoughts be any different? Just because we cannot weigh them on modern devices does not mean they do not exist, or maybe we just have not entered that field of science yet as humans. We know what quarks and gluons and Higgs boson particles are. Why do we not have the name for the waves which enter our cells and create thought? As these mixtures occur on the sun, so many combinations and infinitesimal amount thoughts are created too, one right after another, creating these waves. The sun thinks. They're not conscious thoughts because there's not a body and a brain, but nonetheless, thoughts are created. When these thought waves reach us, each body interprets it a little differently, but more or less the same. Have you had the feeling someone else is thinking the same thing as you? Have you ever had an idea but knew if you didn't act on it, someone else would beat you to it? Because you know someone else is having that same thought too. I'm not saying everybody has the same thoughts at the same time. No, not at all. There's so many thoughts being produced, and each of us is magnetically tuned a little different from each other, and our magnetism attracts certain thoughts. You know, some of us do not get along, and we say because we are polar opposites, or the chemistry was wrong, or we're attracted to someone. Well, these are all definitions of magnetism, and thoughts are magnetically charged because they were created from an explosion, a nuclear reaction on the sun. You may be getting angry at me right now, saying, no, my thoughts are my own, and I am a free-willed being. I control myself. I'm not controlled by the whim of the sun. That's nonsense and impossible. Okay, fine. Believe what you will. I'm not here to burst your bubble. I'm just letting you in on a thought of mine which may help you to understand yourself better and in turn control your destiny. We may have a way of tuning our magnetism, dialing in on a channel we prefer, a channel which will bring us what we desire. If all this is readily available, we just need to attract it to us. We may be in control of this. We can put ourselves in the basket of prosperity. We can dial in our magnetism to attract wealth and love and happiness and good health. We just need to concentrate on each aspect so carefully and in a way to determine where the signal, the thought, is coming from. Like if you're old enough to remember turning the TV antenna outside to pick up a station. We need to turn our antenna to pick up our desires and to be able to turn those desires into reality. I'm sorry, I can't tell you exactly how to do this since I've just discovered it all last night. But I promise you I'll do my best at understanding it so I can pass the information on to you. One more reading and we'll be done with that book.